The stars were quiet that night, at the far edge of known space. The Xylar Dominion patrol ship Vorin drifted silently through the void, its scanners sweeping endless darkness. Captain Reldar leaned forward in his command chair, his 4 yellow eyes focused on a faint reading blinking on the console. It was weak, almost invisible, but strange enough to catch his attention. "Lieutenant, what is that signal?" he asked in his cold, raspy voice. The young officer checked the readings and frowned. "Unknown, Captain. It's giving off no transponder code, no drive signature. Just power. Massive power." Reldar's mandibles clicked softly. A ghost signal out here meant one of 2 things, an abandoned wreck, or a secret human ship. The humans were still a mystery to most of the galaxy. Their home system was sealed, no one entered without being destroyed. But sometimes, strange human technology drifted into deep space. And those who found it never forgot what they saw. "Bring us closer," Reldar ordered. The Vorin moved slowly, the hum of its engines echoing through the metal corridors. The closer they got, the more unstable their scanners became. Static flickered across every screen. The ship's AI announced, "Warning. Interference detected." Still, they pushed on. Minutes later, the object came into view. A massive silhouette floated ahead, dark and lifeless, almost blending with space itself. It looked like a warship, human in design, but no lights, no movement. Just a silent giant drifting in the dark. "Scan it," Reldar commanded. The crew began a deep scan, beams of invisible energy washing over the ship. Data started to flow in, layer by layer, metal composition, structure, density. "It's definitely human," said the science officer, his voice trembling slightly. "But these readings don't make sense. Its armor density is 10 times higher than any known design." Another officer added, "Energy source unknown. It's not fission, not fusion, not antimatter. It's something else." The captain leaned closer to the screen, studying the ghostly outline. The ship's name slowly appeared in translation across the console, UHS Nemesis. The name alone made the crew uneasy. "Run a full structural scan," Reldar ordered. "Let's see what secrets the humans left behind." The moment the scan went deeper, the ship's interior came alive on the monitor. Strange shapes, unknown machinery, something like veins running through the hull. It almost looked organic. The crew exchanged nervous glances. "Captain, is this ship alive?" one of them asked. Reldar didn't answer. Then, without warning, the entire ship shuddered. Lights flickered, alarms beeped. "Power surge!" shouted the engineer. "The human vessel is emitting energy, it's reacting to the scan." The sensors started to distort. Symbols appeared across the screen, old human language mixed with encrypted data. "Something is responding to us," the science officer shouted. A deep voice echoed through the bridge speakers. It was calm, cold, and human. "Unauthorized scan detected." The crew froze. The voice was coming directly from the alien ship's communication array. "Who said that?" Reldar hissed. "Was that from our system?" The AI confirmed, "Negative, Captain. It's external. It's coming from the object." The bridge fell silent. The voice spoke again, slower this time, as if watching them. "You should not have done that." The temperature on the Vorin dropped sharply. The lights dimmed to red as power readings spiked uncontrollably. "Cut the scan. Now!" Reldar shouted. The crew scrambled, but the console refused to respond. Their systems were being overwritten, one by one. The main display suddenly showed a new image, a single human eye, mechanical and glowing bright blue, staring directly at them. Every alien on the bridge felt a cold wave of fear. It wasn't just a warning. It was a presence. "Captain, it's scanning us back," the lieutenant cried. "It's inside our systems." One by one, their control panels shut down. The navigation froze, weapons went offline, life support started to fluctuate. The Vorin was no longer in control of itself. "What is this thing?" whispered Reldar, his voice trembling for the first time. "Is it alive? Is it human?" No one answered. The screens filled with static, then a single line of text appeared. "You look, we look back." The voice returned, softer now, almost whispering in their minds. "Do not approach human vessels. This is your only warning." Then everything went black. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. The ship floated dead in space. No power, no sound, only the faint glow of distant stars. The crew stared into the dark, afraid to speak. Slowly, the systems rebooted, one by one, flickering weakly to life. The mysterious human warship was gone. No trace, no signal, nothing. It had vanished into the void as if it was never there. The science officer broke the silence. "Captain, did we just see a ghost?" Reldar didn't answer. He just stared into the stars where the ship once was and whispered, "No, that was not a ghost. That was a warning." And somewhere, far across the galaxy, a new signal pulsed from deep space, silent, coded, and unmistakably human. Something had awakened. The Voran drifted silently in the cold dark, its crew still shaken from what had just happened. Every system had rebooted, but nothing felt normal. The lights were dim, the air was heavy, and even the hum of the engines sounded weaker. Captain Reldar stood in the middle of the bridge, his mandibles tight with unease. He had faced human ships before, but this was something else. "Status report," he ordered quietly. The engineer's voice was unsteady. "All systems back online, Captain, but the main computer core is behaving strangely. It keeps looping data we never recorded." "Show me," Reldar demanded. The engineer brought up the data logs. Lines of alien code flickered across the screen, mixed with fragments of something else, something in human language. At the center of it, a single line repeated again and again, "Nemesis online." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Captain, the scan data is still stored in our backup drive," said the science officer. "Maybe we can learn what that thing was." Reldar hesitated, then nodded. "Do it. But isolate the data. I don't want another surprise." The scientist began to decrypt the scan results, and strange readings appeared. The structure of the ship wasn't normal metal. It was some kind of hybrid material, half alloy, half living tissue. Its power source was impossible to identify. "Captain," the officer said slowly, "this ship, it's not just reacting to scans. It adapts. Our sensors say it changed while we were observing it." Reldar frowned. "Changed? How?" The internal layout shifted. Hallways, power cores, even the weapons, they're different now than they were 5 minutes ago. The captain's blood ran cold. "It's alive," he whispered. "That ship is alive." Before anyone could respond, a soft static hissed over the comms. It started as faint background noise, then grew louder, forming into words. The same calm human voice returned. "You ignored the warning." Every alien froze. "Identify yourself," Reldar barked. "This is Captain Reldar of the Xylar Dominion. State your intent." The voice ignored him. "You scanned a forbidden construct. You opened what was sealed." The lights flickered, screens distorted, and then, suddenly, new data began appearing. Coordinates, star maps, encrypted symbols. The AI of the Voran tried to block the intrusion, but the human signal was too strong. The ship systems filled with unknown code. "It's rewriting our navigation," shouted the engineer. "We're being pulled." Outside, space began to twist. The stars stretched into lines as if space itself was bending. "Emergency jump protocols." Reldar shouted. "Cut the link." But before the crew could react, the ship lurched violently forward. The jump engines activated on their own. The Voran was being dragged across light years through a corridor of blue light. When they finally stopped, alarms screamed everywhere. The crew stumbled to their stations, looking out at a new starfield. And there it was, the same massive warship, the UHS Nemesis, waiting silently in front of them. How did it bring us here?" one of the crew whispered. The warship's hull glowed faintly, as if alive. Strange lights pulsed through its body like a heartbeat. "Captain," the science officer said in fear, "it's scanning us again." Reldar watched in silence as the sensors went crazy. The Voron's shields melted away. The Nemesis wasn't firing weapons, it was looking straight into their systems, reading everything, even their memories. "It's inside our databanks," the engineer cried. "It's reading our entire history." Then, the human voice returned, cold and emotionless. "You wanted to know what we are. Now you will see." The main screen filled with images, human war fleets, massive and endless, stretching across galaxies. World after world burning under their guns. Entire empires falling. The humans had built machines that tore stars apart, weapons that erased planets with a single thought. The crew stared in horror as they saw a galaxy at war, a war humanity had already won long ago. The voice spoke again. "You think we are gone. You think you are safe. You are wrong." The image changed, showing the Earth, bright and blue, surrounded by silent, sleeping warships. The voice continued. "We rest. We watch. We remember who tried to erase us." Reldar tried to speak, but his throat felt dry. "Why are you showing us this?" he whispered. The voice paused, then said, "Because you looked where you should not have looked." A deep rumble shook the Voron. The Nemesis was powering up something massive. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels. "Captain!" shouted the science officer. "It's charging a weapon. Evasive maneuvers," Reldar commanded, but the ship didn't respond. The engines were offline again. The Nemesis wasn't attacking, it was demonstrating. A beam of pure light shot from its core, not hitting the Voron, but a dead moon nearby. In an instant, the moon vanished, completely erased, not even dust remaining. The crew stared in silence. The voice spoke again, softer now. "Leave this sector. Tell your Dominion. Earth's weapons sleep, but not forever." Then, just like before, the warship faded into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. The sensors read nothing. No energy, no signal, no life. It was gone. The Voron floated alone once more. No one spoke for a long time. The engineer finally broke the silence. "Captain, what do we tell the Council?" Reldar looked at the empty space where the Nemesis had been and whispered, "Tell them the humans are watching." And somewhere, across the galaxy, a signal pulsed again, a deep, rhythmic beat, as if something enormous had awakened and was waiting. The council hall of Xylar Prime was filled with noise and fear. The transmission from Captain Reldar's ship had been replayed 100 times, and every time, the same moment made the room go silent, the instant the human warship erased a moon like it was dust. No weapon in the known galaxy had ever shown such power. The High Speaker of the Council, an ancient alien named Solthran, stared at the holographic image of the ship floating before them. Its black metal surface seemed to absorb light, and even as a recording, it made the air feel heavy. "Are we certain this is human?" he asked quietly. "Yes, Speaker," replied the science director. "The data patterns, the language, the structure, it all matches old Earth signatures. The ship's name, UHS Nemesis, is confirmed." The hall murmured in disbelief. "But humanity was wiped out centuries ago," one counselor hissed. "The last records show their colonies destroyed. How can this ship exist?" Solthran stared at the glowing blue eye at the ship's center and said, "Maybe they were never truly gone." Across the galaxy, the Voron was still limping home. Half its systems were burned out, the crew shaken beyond repair. Captain Reldar sat alone in his quarters, staring at a blank wall. He could still hear that human voice in his head, the cold calm tone saying, "You looked where you should not have looked." Sleep didn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that ship, that eye, that impossible light. Then, one night, his console flickered. A message appeared, untraceable and encrypted. 3 words glowed on the screen, We are awake. Relthar's blood ran cold. He rushed to the bridge, calling his crew. Who sent this? He demanded. The communications officer shook his head. It came from nowhere, Captain. No source, no frequency. Is it from the Nemesis? Someone whispered. Before anyone could answer, the ship's sensors went wild again. Unidentified energy surged behind us, shouted the science officer. On the main screen, space seemed to ripple. Then, out of the distortion, the UHS Nemesis appeared once more, silent, massive, and alive. It hadn't followed them. It had been waiting. All weapons online. Relthar shouted. Defensive shields to maximum. But nothing happened. The systems refused to respond, just like before. The Nemesis drifted closer, its hull glowing faintly with blue light. The crew watched in horror as the ship's structure shifted again, new panels sliding into place, weapons changing shape, armor moving like muscle. It's transforming, whispered the engineer. It's not a ship, it's something else. The human voice returned, now echoing directly in their minds instead of the speakers. We warned you. You disobeyed. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried weight, like thunder wrapped in ice. Relthar forced himself to speak. We didn't mean harm. We were only scanning. It was curiosity. Curiosity, the voice repeated slowly. That is how all destruction begins. Then, something new appeared on the Nemesis's hull, a massive circular opening glowing bright red. It's charging again, someone shouted. But the weapon didn't fire. Instead, a pulse of light spread outward from the warship, washing over the Voron. Every system froze for an instant, then a holographic image appeared on the bridge. A human figure stood before them. His face was calm, emotionless, his uniform dark and old, with an emblem that read United Humanity Command. This ship, the hologram said, is the last sentinel of Earth. You scanned it, and now it has marked you. The crew trembled. Relthar tried to speak. Marked? For what? The hologram's eyes turned cold blue. Observation. The image flickered and vanished. The Nemesis slowly turned, engines humming low, and began to move away. It's leaving, shouted the navigator. But relief didn't come. The ship's AI spoke suddenly, its voice glitching. Warning. Unknown connection detected. Coordinates uploading. On every console, star maps began to draw themselves, lines connecting from the Voron to dozens of alien systems. They realized with horror that the Nemesis had copied all their navigation data and now knew the location of every Xylar world. Relthar shouted, "Cut the network! Now!" But it was too late. The Nemesis disappeared into warp space, leaving behind only silence. Back on Xylar Prime, minutes later, an alert spread through the entire Dominion. Massive unknown energy signatures were appearing across multiple sectors. Ships scrambled, but nothing could stop what came next. In the outer colonies, dark shadows appeared in orbit, identical to the Nemesis, silent and unstoppable. They didn't fire. They simply scanned every world, every ship, as if taking inventory. Then they vanished again. Panic spread through the Dominion. They're multiplying, the council scientists said in fear. One ship became many. Solthran turned to his generals. Find a way to stop them. But no one had an answer. On the Voron, Relthar received a final message before his ship lost contact with home. It was short, but clear. You should have left us sleeping. The message ended with a single image, the Earth, glowing bright, surrounded by dozens of sleeping warships awakening one by one. Relthar felt his chest tighten. Humanity hadn't died. They had hidden, waiting for someone foolish enough to wake their guardians. And now the galaxy was learning the price of curiosity. Somewhere in the void, the Nemesis spoke again into the silence, unheard by anyone alive. For every eye that looks upon us, another world will go dark. The galaxy burned with fear. Every empire, every council, every fleet had received the same haunting transmission, a human voice repeating the words, "We are awake." It played on every frequency, every network, and then vanished, leaving systems in chaos. The Xylar Dominion was on high alert. Their fleets gathered around their homeworld, thousands of ships forming a steel wall in orbit. No one spoke of attack, they spoke only of survival. Deep beneath the capital, the council met in secret. Solthran, their leader, stood before a display showing dozens of red marks blinking across the stars. Each of these, he said slowly, is a human warship, identical to the one called Nemesis. They have appeared across 7 sectors. They move without warp signatures, without detectable engines. His voice trembled slightly. They appear, scan, and disappear again. A silence fell over the room. Then one general slammed his claws on the table. Then we destroy them before they destroy us. Solthran glared. And what will you use, General? Our weapons failed. Our scanners failed. Our ships froze under its gaze. Another officer spoke quietly. Perhaps we should send envoys. If they are human, they can be reasoned with. But everyone remembered the warning, the calm human voice saying, "You looked where you should not have looked." There was no negotiation with something that old and that patient. Meanwhile, at the edge of Xylar space, the Vorin drifted, damaged and alone. Captain Reldar watched the stars, haunted by guilt. It was his scan that had awakened the Nemesis. His curiosity had opened a door that should have stayed sealed. Suddenly, the sensors beeped. "Contact!" shouted the officer. Multiple signatures inbound, 30. No, 50 ships. Reldar rose sharply. "Identify them." "Not Xylar," came the answer. "Unknown, wait, human." The word made the air feel cold. The main screen flickered, and there they were, dark shapes sliding out of the void, each one identical to the Nemesis. They moved in silence, no heat, no sound, no energy trails. Their hulls shimmered with faint blue light, like deep-sea predators gliding through black water. "All ships, stand by," Reldar ordered. But the humans didn't fire. Instead, one ship sent a signal. It was not sound, not code, just a pulse, steady and slow, like a heartbeat. Then the Vorin systems came alive with data. Holograms appeared all over the bridge. Blueprints of weapons, ships, technologies that defied logic. "They're showing us their power," whispered the science officer. "No, they're showing us what they can do." The holograms changed, images of planets vanishing in light, fleets dissolving into dust, stars collapsing into silence. Then came the voice. "We offered peace once," it said. "The galaxy mocked it. You took. You probed. You forgot fear." The crew stood frozen as the voice continued. "Now you will remember." One of the human warships moved closer. Its surface shifted again, transforming into a massive cannon aimed directly at the Vorin. Reldar shouted, "Evasive maneuvers!" But before they could react, the ship fired, not at them, but into empty space. For a second, nothing happened. Then a ripple spread through the void, distorting light and sound. A wormhole opened, massive and glowing, and through it, a fleet unlike anything seen before emerged. Human ships, thousands of them, old but perfect, each carrying the same mark, United Humanity Command. "Impossible," whispered Reldar. "They were extinct." The voice spoke again, this time louder, resonating across every frequency in the sector. "Humanity sleeps beneath the stars, but our guardians do not. The Nemesis is only the first." The Xylar fleet arrived moments later, hundreds of warships, weapons ready. The void between the two armadas crackled with energy. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Xylar opened fire. Beams of plasma and torpedoes streaked across space, hitting the human fleet head-on, and disappeared. The explosions didn't even touch their shields. It was like throwing pebbles at a mountain. Then the Nemesis responded. A single flash of white light burst from its hull, and every Xylar ship went silent. No explosions, no screams, just silence. Their fleet was gone, erased in an instant. On the Vorin, The crew watched in shock. "They're not attacking us," whispered the engineer. "They're showing us." The human fleet turned as one, moving past them toward the Xylar homeworld. "Captain," said the navigator quietly, "should we warn the council?" Reldar looked at the approaching ships and shook his head. "They already know." Back on Xylar Prime, alarms blared as the sky filled with light. The human fleet arrived in orbit, surrounding the planet in a perfect sphere. The largest ship, Nemesis, moved to the center. Solthran stared at it from his command tower, fear clawing at his chest. He tried to open a communication link, but before he could, the same human voice filled the air, broadcast to every living being on the planet. "You wanted to understand humanity. Now you will." Then the sky turned white. For one moment, the entire world glowed brighter than a sun, and then it was gone. The planet, the fleets, the capital, all vanished into nothing. When the light faded, only silence remained. The human ships turned slowly and vanished into the dark. Across the galaxy, thousands of worlds received the final signal from the Nemesis: "Do not seek us. Do not scan our kind. The next time you look upon Earth, it will be the last thing you see." And then, as quickly as they had come, the human fleet disappeared into the void, leaving behind only empty space and a galaxy filled with terror. The destruction of Xylar Prime spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Whole empires fell into panic as the recordings of the event leaked through black channels and secret relays. The images showed a single human warship surrounded by hundreds more, their weapons silent until the final flash. No sound, no debris, just light, and then nothing. Entire civilizations watched and realized the truth: humanity had never died. They had simply gone silent, watching, waiting, and now they had awakened. On a distant space station orbiting the cold star Arath, a group of alien scholars studied the fragments of transmission. The leader, an old Quran named Yulek, stared at the image of the UHS Nemesis frozen on the screen. "This ship defies every known rule of science," he said softly. "Its power readings don't decay. It operates without a crew. And yet, it speaks." His apprentice, a young scientist named Kier, looked up nervously. "Sir, could it be artificial intelligence? A weapon left behind?" Yulek shook his head. "No. Its responses were emotional, deliberate. It knew what fear was. This was not a machine. It was something else, something born of human will." Before he could say more, the lights flickered. Every console in the room went black for a moment, then flickered back to life. The main screen changed. The Nemesis was gone, but its eye appeared, glowing blue. Then a message scrolled across the display: "You continue to search. You continue to defy." Kier stumbled backward in terror. "It's here. It's watching us." Yulek's voice trembled. "Shut down the network. Disconnect everything." But it was too late. The space station systems began to hum, the walls vibrating with strange energy. Outside, the stars seemed to bend and twist. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. On their sensors, they saw it, the UHS Nemesis hovering silently above the station. It hadn't warped in. It had simply appeared. Kier whispered, "It's like it stepped out of space itself." Yulek stared in awe. No engines, no sound, pure spatial manipulation. This is beyond technology. This is control over reality. Then the human voice filled the room, calm but echoing with ancient power. "You were warned. You watched anyway." The voice grew colder. "Knowledge has a cost." A blinding light filled the station, and when it cleared, the orbital outpost was gone. Only a cloud of dust and melted debris remained. The Nemesis turned slowly, scanning nearby ships, then vanished once more into the void. Across the galaxy, more stations and ships disappeared the same way. Anyone who tried to analyze, research, or even speak about the Nemesis simply vanished. The galaxy fell into a terrified silence. Even the mighty Varn Empire, who once mocked humanity, erased every file and record they had about Earth. They destroyed archives, deleted maps, and ordered their citizens to forget the name human. But fear does not erase curiosity. Somewhere in the outer systems, far from the eyes of the great powers, a hidden human observer watched the chaos unfold. Deep beneath an asteroid base, Admiral Jonas Reeve of Earth Command stood before a glowing hologram of the galaxy. Red marks represented the Nemesis fleet, scattered and spreading. His eyes were tired but proud. "They finally remember," he said quietly. Behind him, a young officer hesitated. "Sir, did we have to destroy Xylar Prime? Couldn't we have just warned them?" Reeve turned, his expression unreadable. "They were warned. They scanned our sentinel, they touched our silence. The Nemesis acted according to protocol." The officer looked down. "So it's true. The ship is alive?" Reeve nodded slowly. "Alive, and loyal. The Nemesis was built from human steel and human minds. Each one carries the neural imprint of our greatest warriors. They do not sleep, and they do not forgive." He turned back to the hologram, watching the signals fade. "For centuries, we let them think we were gone. We watched them grow arrogant, greedy, careless. Now they will remember the cost of curiosity." Outside the base, the dark expanse of space was quiet. Then, from the distance, faint signals appeared, distress calls from other systems. Reports of new sightings. More Nemesis-class ships appearing, scanning, and disappearing. "How many are there, Admiral?" the officer asked. Reeve sighed. "More than the galaxy will ever want to know." In the following weeks, entire regions went dark. No one attacked the Nemesis fleet, they didn't dare. The ships never fired unless provoked. They simply appeared, scanned, and vanished, leaving behind a growing sense of dread. Civilizations began to turn on each other, blaming rivals for attracting the humans' wrath. Trade collapsed. Communication networks were shut down. The galaxy was breaking apart under fear alone. Yet somewhere beyond the chaos, on a blue planet hidden behind layers of cloaking fields, humanity watched in silence. Earth still thrived, its cities buried under mountains and oceans, its people living unseen. The Council of Earth Command met in the great underground city of Aegis Prime. "Reports confirm full deterrence," one commander said. "No species will risk scanning human sectors again." Reeve stepped forward. "Good. Then the message is clear." He looked around the chamber, his voice cold and calm. "They thought we were weak. They thought extinction humbled us. But we learned, we adapted, and we became something more." He paused, staring at the giant hologram of the Nemesis hovering in the center of the room. "They scanned our creation and found fear. Let that be their last lesson." And far above, in the dark reaches of space, the UHS Nemesis drifted alone once again, its eye glowing faintly as it whispered into the void, "The Watchers have seen enough." The galaxy was no longer the same. Fear of the humans had become a shadow that hung over every star system. Trade routes were empty, communication networks were silent, and even the most powerful empires dared not whisper the word Earth. Yet in the deep void, far beyond the galactic core, a new mystery began to unfold. Strange energy readings started appearing on old human colonies long thought abandoned. Small outposts, forgotten in history, were suddenly reactivating. One such place was Colony Theta 9, a frozen wasteland orbiting a dying red star. It had been deserted for over 2 centuries, until now. A lone exploration team from the Tour Dominion detected a signal from its surface. Against the orders of their leaders, they went to investigate. The captain, Rail, was an ambitious alien eager to prove himself. "If we can understand their technology, we'll control what they fear," he told his crew as their shuttle descended through the icy clouds. The landing was rough, and the air was thin. But the ruins still stood tall, massive metal structures half buried in ice. At the center, a dome-shaped building pulsed with a soft blue light. "That energy reading matches the Nemesis signature," said one of the technicians. Rail smiled greedily. "Then this is it, the source of their power." The team entered the dome. Inside, They found a circular chamber filled with black crystal panels and a central pillar humming with faint light. On it was a symbol none of them had seen before, the old insignia of the United Human Systems. The technician approached carefully. "Sir, the system is dormant but still active. I think it's a communication core." "Activate it," Rail ordered. "Let's see what the humans left behind." The technician hesitated but followed orders. As soon as he touched the console, the room trembled. The blue light intensified, and the air grew heavy. A voice echoed through the chamber, calm yet commanding. "Unauthorized access detected. Identify." The crew froze. The voice was human. Rail stepped forward. "We come in peace. We seek to understand your power." The voice paused. Then it replied, "You seek power without wisdom. That is how empires fall." Suddenly the floor split open, and dark tendrils of light rose from below, wrapping around the crew. They struggled, screaming, as their bodies disintegrated into energy. Only Rail remained, trembling as the voice spoke again. "You scanned our ships. You searched our ruins. You ignored our warning. Knowledge of humanity is forbidden." Rail fell to his knees. "Please. I only wanted to learn." The voice softened. "Then learn this. Curiosity without respect leads to extinction." The chamber went silent, and in a flash of light, Rail was gone. From orbit, the tour ship watched in horror as the entire colony imploded, collapsing into itself. The planet's surface cracked, and then, nothing. No explosion, no debris. Just empty space where the colony had been. The event shook the galaxy once again. Reports flooded in of similar incidents. Planets erased, stations gone, sensors showing impossible readings. It was as if the Nemesis itself was cleansing the stars of those who dared to remember. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jonas Reeve received the news. He stood quietly in the control chamber, watching the red lights blink across the galactic map. "They keep searching," he said bitterly. "Even after everything." A young officer replied, "Sir, the Dominion has lost 3 colonies. Their fleets are retreating from the outer rim." Reeve nodded slowly. "Fear keeps them alive. Curiosity destroys them. That balance must be maintained." Another officer spoke. "Sir, some within the Council are questioning our silence. They believe we should reveal ourselves, prove that humanity still exists openly." Reeve turned sharply. "Reveal ourselves? After what they did to us? They enslaved our kind, destroyed our worlds, and erased our history. Let them live with the fear they created." The room fell silent. Then Reeve looked toward the main view screen, showing the endless stars. "We are not monsters," he said quietly. "We're survivors. But survival sometimes requires darkness." Deep in the void, the UHS Nemesis received its next set of coordinates. The AI's voice whispered through its systems, echoing with fragments of human thought. "New signal detected. Colony origin, Theta 9. Unauthorized intrusion terminated." The ship's eye glowed brighter, and for a brief moment, a human face flickered across its screen, a face made of memories, a ghost of one of the first war heroes whose mind had been fused into the ship's core. "They still don't understand," the voice murmured. "They see only fear, not purpose." The Nemesis turned silently and vanished into the blackness, leaving behind a trail of faint blue light. Across the galaxy, the remaining species gathered in secret. The Galactic Council reconvened for the first time in centuries. The leaders sat in silence, their faces grim. "The humans are not attacking," said one. "They are cleansing. They are warning us to stay away." Another replied, "If they truly wanted peace, they would speak." A third voice, older and wiser, spoke softly. "No. They did speak. We just never listened." The chamber went quiet as the council's lights dimmed. Outside, the stars seemed to pulse faintly, as if watching. Somewhere in that endless darkness, the Nemesis waited, silent, patient, eternal, guarding the secret of humanity. And the galaxy, trembling under its unseen gaze, finally began to understand that some doors were never meant to be opened. The galaxy had entered an age of silence. The once proud empires that ruled over thousands of worlds were now shadows of their former selves. Every ship that traveled too close to human space disappeared. Every scientist who dared to study human ruins vanished without a trace. The Galactic Council was fractured, its members too terrified to even speak of the humans. Yet in the midst of fear, whispers began to spread. A rumor that humanity was not just protecting itself, but preparing for something far greater. Deep within the uncharted void, beyond the known galaxy, strange signals began to pulse. They weren't warnings or threats. They were coordinates. And those who followed them vanished entirely. Among the few who dared to chase those signals was a small group of explorers from the Varn Dominion. Led by Commander Threx, they were desperate. Their empire was dying, trade collapsing, people starving. Threx believed that if he could find the source of the human power, he could save his people. If fear is what keeps them safe, he told his crew, then we will learn to use that fear. The crew followed the coordinates through collapsing wormholes and gravity rifts until they arrived in a dark sector where no star shone. There was nothing but blackness, a void so deep that even light seemed to vanish. Then their sensors detected something massive ahead, a structure larger than any moon, floating silently in the darkness. It wasn't a planet or a ship. It was something in between. Threx stared at it in awe. This must be it. The human core. As they approached, the structure began to awaken. Lights flickered along its surface, forming patterns like veins of blue fire. A deep vibration filled their ship, and a human voice echoed through their comms. You should not be here. The crew froze. Threx stepped forward. We come seeking knowledge. We mean no harm. The voice replied, You seek what you cannot understand. Knowledge without honor leads to ruin. Threx clenched his fists. We are dying. Our people have no future. Help us, and we will leave in peace. There was a pause. Then the human voice whispered, Peace was never yours to take. Before Threx could respond, the black structure began to unfold. Massive panels opened like wings, revealing thousands of glowing cores beneath its surface. The crew realized too late, it was not a station. It was a fleet, a hidden armada of sleeping Nemesis-class warships. Each one powered by a human consciousness, each one alive. By the stars, one of the crew whispered. How many of them are there? The sensors struggled to count. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands. The human voice spoke again, stronger now, echoing through the void. For centuries we watched your wars. We saw your greed, your cruelty, your arrogance. You feared us because you should have. But now, you have forced our hand. Threx's voice trembled. You can't destroy the entire galaxy. The voice grew cold. Destruction is not our goal. Balance is. Then, one by one, the Nemesis ships awakened. Their eyes ignited with blue fire, spreading light through the endless darkness. The void filled with energy so immense that nearby systems began to tremble. The Varn ship tried to flee, but their engines failed. They were caught in a gravitational field as the lead Nemesis turned its gaze upon them. A holographic image appeared on their bridge, a human figure, tall and calm, dressed in black armor with the old insignia of Earth Command. You searched for us, the hologram said. Now you have found us. You will carry our message. Threx's voice shook. What message? The figure smiled faintly. Tell them that humanity has returned. Tell them that the silence is over. The hologram vanished, and the Nemesis ships powered down again, folding back into the shadows of space. The Varn ship was released, spinning helplessly back into the light of known space. When Threx's crew regained control, they discovered that only hours had passed for them, but centuries had passed in the galaxy. Everything they once knew was gone. The great empires had fallen, their worlds silent and lifeless. Humanity's presence was everywhere, abandoned structures, silent sentinels, and strange energy signatures marking former capitals. Threx stood on the bridge, staring at the ruins of what once was. "They didn't destroy the galaxy," he whispered. "They reset it." His ship's AI crackled to life, replaying the final human transmission that had been left in their systems. "The galaxy was built on conquest. It forgot balance. We have restored it. Let them begin again." Threx felt a strange mix of fear and respect. Humanity had become something beyond mortal understanding. Not conquerors, not saviors, but cosmic guardians ensuring that life never again became consumed by pride. As his ship drifted through the remains of a fallen world, Threx whispered to his crew, "Remember this day. The humans didn't vanish. They ascended." In the darkness beyond, one final Nemesis ship watched silently. Its single blue eye glowed softly as it sent a quiet message across the stars. "The cycle has ended. The Watchers rest." And with that, it turned and disappeared into the eternal night, leaving behind a galaxy reborn in silence, and fear that would never fade.